Shalom, back again with another video. Before I begin this lesson, I'd like to first begin by giving all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Ruach Kwadash. I want to give double honors to my elders and apostles who rule well, where I've learned this truth from. I want to say peace and salutations to Akim, your brothers out there laboring, pushing this word out in all truth and in sincerity. I want to say shalom to you Israelite sisters that may be listening, and also to you Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. You may look like these nations, but your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is the chosen seed line. Shalom. Now, a lot of you may recognize this individual that I have on my screen in front of us. This guy goes by the name of Gorilla Hebrew. He's the former head of the Sakari camp. I believe since then he's changed his name now to Chief Gorilla, which suits him perfectly. But this guy here, um, well, you can tell by the title of this clip, it says, "I'm not a part of the Israelite community." So he's recently done a video where he's made the statement that he's no longer part of the Israelite community. A lot of people are angry about this. To me, it doesn't surprise me that he's coming out because there was a long time where I felt that the guy wasn't in the truth anyway. Like I'd see him on these podcasts and I'd see him on you know doing certain things, and or saying certain things, and it just made me think to myself, is this guy even in the truth? One of the things that he said recently that caused a bit of a stir is that he was on a podcast and the presenter mentioned about, well, when's the Lord coming back? And I think he said, well, could be between any time now and 1,000 years from now, something to that effect. Which that's crazy. That's crazy. That means 1,000 years, everybody would have to die, and then we'd all have to come back and learn the truth again. Do you know what I mean? The regeneration, which is crazy to me for him to even say that. But okay, this guy, he's known for going off, being proud. You know, a long time ago when I was new to the truth, I would follow and watch Sakari videos with my brothers, and there were just certain things that we would watch this guy say, and it was sort of like, you raise an eyebrow to say, did he actually just say that? I think one in particular that I remember is when you had a Christian, or you had a debate with a Christian. Christian came up to his camp one day and was saying that we all fall short. Everyone sins. We all fall short. Roughly paraphrasing. And the pride on Gorilla Hebrew was that, well, he doesn't sin. He doesn't sin. He keeps all the commandments, right? So that there, sort of had me scratching my head as if to say, well, what do you mean? Like he's perfect? Like we all sin. Scriptures even say that, right? But with this guy, because he's oozing with pride, you can't tell him any different, right? So that was, one of the things that stood out to me. Um, Other things that he's done, a lot of controversies in the Israelite community. One of those things being that the guy, um, during the Passover, you know, which is a solemn assembly, decides to hold a party at a bar with a whole bunch of bottle girls wearing very little clothing, like real low shorts, you know, batty riders, you know, all this stuff. And when the Israelite community was rebuking him about that, instead of just humbling himself down, the guy, he was acting proud, you know. Couldn't tell him nothing. Can't tell this guy. Can't rebuke this guy, right? Matter of fact, let me pull up the scripture that says it. So this is Salakia. This is the book of Titus. Um, yeah, so this is Titus chapter 1 verse 13. It says, "This witness is true. Wherefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith." Right? So you rebuke them sharply. So when he's going off and he gets rebuked, instead of taking the rebuke, the guy is proud. He doesn't want to accept that. You know what I mean? The guy doesn't want to receive it. He just wants to buck up and act like everybody's just, jumping on him, or it's an issue. Do you know what I mean? And then you got all his little followers um, in the Sakari camp that are, oh yeah, these other, these guys aren't what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, just you read their comment boards sometimes. I think, man, that camp is lost, man. That camp is lost. Absolutely. But this guy, Gorilla Hebrew, Chief Gorilla, whatever he wants to call himself nowadays, he's no stranger to controversy from the Israelite community, right? So it doesn't surprise me that this guy has gone off. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll go back to the clip, and I'll play what he says, and then we'll just bring a few more scriptures out, and then we'll close it there. So without further ado, let's listen to Chief Gorilla.
Right? I'm not a part of the Hebrew Israelite community. I just got done talking about it. And I can't be associated with the Hebrew Israelites anymore. The real deal. How do you become an Israelite? You don't become an Israelite. I'm not coming in representing the Hebrew Israelite community anymore. Nah, I ain't doing that. Somebody asked me like, oh, so what do you identify as now? If you're saying you're not a so-called Hebrew Israelite. Why lead a movement? Well, because it's a movement. And movements stop. But are actually cosplaying as the ancient Israelites. And they are exactly like Christians because they're still picking and choosing the parts of the Bible in which they want to follow. The Israelites have been bamboozled, have allowed themselves to be bamboozled and continually bamboozled themselves. I just want people to understand the Hebrew Israelites consensually are shooting themselves in the foot. Nobody's taking it seriously. Right?
So as you can hear loud and clear, the guy said it out of his own mouth. And like I said, the video's like 9 minutes long, but this is just a minute clip that summarizes the main points that he was getting to, right? So this is what I'm saying. The guy is proud. So you can even tell by some of these comments, right? This guy here, Brother Yo, says he got caught up in some wicked stuff, which obviously I ain't gonna speak on now. I'll briefly mention it, but I ain't gonna speak on it. Says he got caught up in some wicked stuff. Now I'm not an Israelite. You a clown. Then there's Zayan. I don't know whether it's AI or somebody from the government got to him. All I know is it's better to not knowing the way than to turn from it. Yeah, so a lot of people in these comments, they're saying, yeah, look, see, I knew, you always got that one, right? So it's like this video's cut up low. Where's the full video? I mean, you can, you got people that are saying the full video's there, but the main point is right here. Listening to that whole 9 minute video of him going on about what he's talking about is irrelevant. I mean, well, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant because it is good to sort of look at the whole picture and then go from there. But the guy is saying exactly what he's saying, right? So the guy is going off, right? A few other things that I noticed when I was first in the truth and I was watching Sakari is that the brother used to always wear his hat, you know, and in the scriptures, because when he got rebuked for wearing his hat while he was teaching, the first thing he said, instead of saying, "Oh, um, yeah, you're right, brother. Let me take the hat off while I'm teaching Salakia." No, it was more so, well, it's not in the law, so it's not against the law for me to teach with my hat on. It's not in the law, so I'm not sinning by wearing my hat. You know what I mean? When in First Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3, it says, "But I would have you know that the head of every man is the anointed, Yahushai HaMashiach, is Yahushai." It says, "And the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Yahushai HaMashiach, the anointed, is the Most High." Right? The next verse even says it here. Every man praying and prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. So wearing a hat while you're teaching or praying, you're dishonoring your head, which is Yahushai. You're dishonoring Yahushai. So when brothers rebuked him, you know, wherefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith. This guy was bucking up against it and still continued to teach with his hat on, right? So the guy was just the guy was, he was off, man. He was a proud individual. I won't say, that, he was anything else. I'll just say he was a proud individual. I'll just leave it there. I won't even go any further than that, right? But he was wrong, right? And it says here in the book of Ecclesiasticus, in the book of Sirach, chapter 32, verse 17, it says, "A sinful man will not be reproved, but findeth an excuse according to his will." And that was the excuse. It's not in the law, so I'm not sinning by wearing my hat because he wanted to wear his hat, you know? He wanted to wear his hat, you know? Now, when you go back to the video, when you say here about this comment here, he got caught up in some wicked stuff. Like the guy was constantly getting caught up in things that would bring shame upon the nation of the Israelites, right? So let's say, for example, you had the Passover where this guy went to the club and had it all over social media, bottle girls coming out wearing these like really high up shorts, all up in their backside and all that, you know. And the guy, when getting rebuked, instead of taking the correction, I mean, eventually they did take the correction, but it wasn't before they blew up on everybody and were showing their prideful side. From then I kind of knew that it was only a matter of time before that camp broke up, and the Lord did exactly that. So the main people, um, Alazar, Deacon, Assad, they all split up. Now you got the Deacon and Assad with the Genesis Israelites. That I don't think they're affiliated at all with Guerrilla Hebrew, um, or Chief Guerrilla. I think that they're still obviously, cordial because as Israelites we got to deal with our brothers cordially. But yeah, there's no affiliation between them anymore, right? But you know, after that, then there was a situation, that his wife exposed about him, um, behind the scenes, and I mean, I ain't even gonna speak on that. You can look that up. His wife exposed him, and I mean, some weird things going on behind the scenes, especially for a man in his position. The guy started a camp, he's got a large following, a lot of followers, but again, them super chats and all that money got to his head, you know. And that's why this brother made the comment he made. I don't know whether it's AI or somebody from the government got to him, like because that's what happens when you start blowing up. You get those calls, man. That's why we say, some of these Israelite groups are coming like agents nowadays, right? But as we get back to the scriptures, right? This is what it says in the book of Luke, chapter 11, verse 24. It says, "When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, and he walk." It's like let me start that again. So this is Luke chapter 11, verse 24. This is where it says, "When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man." So, if you're in the world and then you wake up to this truth, that unclean spirit that was dwelling within you is cast out. It says, "He," which is that unclean spirit, says, "He walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and finding none." Right? So he's out there. You're clean. You got yourself right, you're getting yourself together, your mind right, your body right, your faith right, you're starting to speak, have a relationship with the Lord and your house shy, you know what I mean? Like you're a whole new creation, right? And then goes on to say, "He saith, he, which is the unclean spirit, I will return unto my house whence I came out." So that unclean spirit's going to return. He's going to be seeking to get back in where he was, right? Verse 25, it says, "And when he cometh, he findeth it swept and garnished," right? So he goes back to that clean that clean soul. You cleaned yourself up, right? You got yourself right. Now that unclean spirit cometh back, and when you allow that unclean spirit in, he's like, oh, sweet, this place is swept, garnished, nice spot, sweet. Now I can rest here, right? It says, then goeth he, that he is the unclean spirit, then goeth he and taketh to him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. Meaning, if you come into this truth, you clean yourself up, you get caught lacking, you show that pride, you act like, you can't be told anything. Them unclean spirits are like, sweet, let's get back up in there. Let's get back up in there. It's nice and clean. But the spirit that you had before ain't going to come in alone. He's bringing 7 other more wicked spirits, right? Than himself, you know? Which, hey, we can see it from Chief Gorilla. Like, he's gone all the way off, man. Like, from when I was new in the truth to where I am now, that ain't the same dude. That dude now is a completely different thing altogether. This guy here is completely different, right? But hey, that's the scriptures say. This is why the scriptures tell us these things, right? So as we continue on, right? Wisdom of Solomon. It says, for into a malicious, this is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 4. It says, for into a malicious soul, wisdom shall not enter, nor dwell in the body that is subject unto sin. Like this guy, like there ain't no wisdom there, man. He's brought in all these people, into his camp, Sakari, right? And these people are looking to him for leadership, and the guy's bugging out. The guy's completely bugged out now, right? As we keep reading, this is the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 28. Matter of fact, let me start up a bit higher. I'll start at verse 25. Right, so this is the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 25. It says, who changed the truth of the Most High into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. It says, for this cause the Most High gave them up unto vile affections. Again, speaking of the situation that his wife exposed. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. Right? Now, this scripture here is referring to, obviously the women going off, but I mean, in a way, you can attach it to um, Gorilla Hebrew's situation because his wife went off. His wife exposed him, man. Like when you listen to what actually happened that she exposed, I mean, like all of that situation is off, right? Now, verse 27 says, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet. Right? Now, verse 28 says, and even as they did not like to retain the Most High in their knowledge, the Most High gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which they are not convenient. Verse 29 says, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate. Now that's one thing that the Sakari camp was known for: debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, right? Backbiters, haters of the Most High, despiteful, proud, boasters. Look at my chain. I got that new album, Glow Cane. Inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of the Most High, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. Right? So that's this guy, man. That's this guy here. That's this guy. And their camp. Now, I'm not saying everybody in Sakari is like that, but they were following this guy. They couldn't see it for themselves, but now obviously it's made manifest. You can see it now, right? And the point is, Great Millstone, starting with the head apostles, the like-minded brothers, the elders, on down, were telling you that this guy weren't right. You know, now I only know this guy from obviously seeing him on YouTube when I was first in the truth when I was watching Sakari. But the spirit, all praise, honor, glory be to Yahweh by Shimi Shai for waking me up out of that. To see that this guy weren't right. It didn't really, take me, the word of Great Millstone to know that there was something off with this guy. The spirit was revealing that to me. But they were right, as they have been. That's why we follow the leadership of Great Millstone, because they're right. They're the men of the Lord. They're the men that the Lord has set up in these end times to teach us the right way. All right. So, again, like this whole situation, what do his followers do now? What do they do? The Spirit's going to lead them to, either fall out of the truth, to join another bugged out camp, or to start listening to the truth by the true prophets and teachers, right, of Great Millstone, right? But who knows? Anyway, this is a book of First Timothy, chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils." The scriptures are on point. This guy, right? And that's true. Verse 2 says, "Speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron." Mm, mm-mm. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this, don't want to beat a dead horse, but this guy, he's been going off, man. I don't even think this guy was ever in the truth, to be honest with you. But you know, it is sad to see. But hey, this is the way that this is what the Lord said was going to happen, right? This is the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 19. It says, "Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire." Verse 20, "Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them." So obviously the guy became the head guy, the chief guy in the Sakari camp, and ultimately it's reached its end. The chief guy of Sakari is now no longer a Hebrew Israelite. Come on, man, that camp was through from the beginning, man. But it's all good. The Lord is the Lord knows what He's doing, right? So I'm gonna leave it there. I pray, Lord willing, that this was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. And with that, it's on to the next, Lord willing. I'm going to say, Kol Halo Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai Bashim Rachakudash. Shalom. It's on to the next.